You walk on it every single day. You live inside buildings made of it. It is the second most consumed substance on Earth, right after water. But there's a very good chance you've been calling it by the wrong name. We often point to a sidewalk and say, "Look at that cement," or point to a spinning truck and call it a cement mixer. But if you said that in front of a civil engineer, they might just cringe. Because cement and concrete are not the same thing. In fact, they're as different as flour is from a finished chocolate cake. Welcome to Simple Things Surprising Histories. Today, we are breaking down the gray stuff that built the modern world, clearing up the confusion and uncovering the surprising history of how we learned to turn rock into liquid and back into rock again. Let's start with the golden rule of construction. Cement is an ingredient, concrete is the result. The easiest way to remember this is the baking analogy. If you want to bake a cake, you need flour, sugar, eggs, and water. You wouldn't look at a slice of cake and say, "Wow, that's a delicious piece of flour." In our case, cement is the flour. It is a fine gray powder made from calcined limestone and clay. It's a binding agent, a glue. By itself, cement is actually quite brittle and prone to cracking. You would never build a skyscraper out of pure cement paste. Concrete, on the other hand, is the cake. To make it, you take that cement paste and mix it with water and aggregates. Aggregates are just a fancy word for rocks, sand, and gravel. Here is the surprising part. Concrete is mostly just rocks. About 60 to 75% of a concrete block is just sand and gravel. The cement and water just act as the glue that holds those rocks together in a solid mass. So, that truck spinning down the highway, that is a concrete mixer. If it were full of just cement, it would be a very dusty, very expensive, and very useless truck. Now that we know the recipe, let's look at the history, because this is where things get mysterious. We tend to think of concrete as a modern, ugly, gray industrial material, but it is actually ancient technology. The masters of this material were the Romans. They built an empire on concrete, or opus caementicium. Take the Pantheon in Rome. It has the largest unreinforced concrete dome in the world, and it was built nearly 2,000 years ago. It is still standing today. Meanwhile, some of our modern driveways crack after 20 years. Why? The Romans used a secret ingredient, volcanic ash, specifically from the region of Pozzuoli. When they mixed this ash with lime and seawater, it created a super durable concrete that actually got stronger over time as it interacted with the ocean. But here's the tragedy. When the Roman Empire fell, the recipe for concrete was lost, literally forgotten. For over 1,000 years during the Middle Ages, humanity forgot how to make liquid stone. We went back to building with plain cut stone and wood. It wasn't until the Industrial Revolution in the 1800s that an Englishman named Joseph Aspdin burned some limestone in his kitchen stove and patented Portland cement, giving birth to the modern concrete age. So, how does this gray sludge turn into something hard enough to hold up a bridge? Most people think concrete dries. They think the water evaporates, leaving the solid behind like mud drying in the sun. But that is a myth. If concrete actually dried out by evaporation, it would crumble to dust. Concrete cures through a chemical reaction called hydration. When the water meets the cement, it triggers a reaction that grows microscopic crystals. These crystals interlock with the gravel and sand, locking everything into place. Because this is a chemical reaction, not evaporation, concrete can actually harden underwater. In fact, keeping concrete wet helps it get stronger. This is why you'll see construction workers spraying water on new concrete on a hot day. They aren't cleaning it, they're keeping it thirsty so the chemical reaction can finish. There is just one problem with concrete. It has incredible compressive strength. You can stack heavy weights on it and it won't crush. But it has terrible tensile strength. If you try to pull it apart or bend it, it snaps. That's why we added the final piece of the puzzle, steel. By embedding steel bars, or rebar, inside the wet concrete, we created reinforced concrete. The concrete handles the weight, and the steel handles the stretching and bending. This marriage of metal and stone is what allowed us to leave the ground and build the skyscrapers that define our cities today. So, the next time you see a sidewalk, remember, you're not walking on cement. You're walking on concrete, a mixture of rocks and sand held together by a chemical reaction that was lost to history for 1,000 years and rediscovered to build the modern world. If you enjoyed this slice of history, don't forget to hit that like button. It really helps the channel. For more stories about the simple things that surround us, be sure to subscribe to Simple Things Surprising Histories. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.